Savannah Coca-Cola, Sunbelt, Texas Roadhouse, Pooler. They actually opened the restaurant early and prepared food and delivered it to our workers out there at the landfill. Southwest Baptist Church, Royal Restaurant. Miss Bokook right here took money out of her own pocket and bought stuff for the officers and the workers out there. So appreciate you, Janice, for that. Waste Management, Denard Johnson, Lee Owens, Fleming Tarver. Waste Management was absolutely fantastic. They upended their business operations in order for us to seek justice for Quinton Simon, and we truly appreciate it. We could not have done it without their work. Meriwether Site Solutions, Verizon, Chatham Emergency Services, SEMA, the Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Wiltshire had people out assisting us in the search. Parks and Recs, especially Corey Harper. If y'all know Corey, he's a really fine individual. He was out there every single day running a bulldozer, helping us move dirt in order to search for what we had to search for. We couldn't have done the work without him. He was fantastic, and thank you, Steve, for offering him up. I'm not sure if Steve's still here. Public Works, Lisa Foley was fantastic. Occupational Safety, Ben Lewis, Lee Harold, tremendous amount of support for us. I just wanted to thank them publicly for this. I know I've thanked them privately. The FBI, Savannah Fire, Savannah Police, DNR, GBI, all of these individuals had a hand in a successful conclusion of a very tragic case here in Chatham County. So my sincere thanks to all of them. And lastly, Commissioner Lockett, thanks for coming out to LePage Cemetery. We did locate one homeless individual that was out there. We made contact with him. We're going to work on, we did determine on talking to William Wright that is part of the cemetery property where he's at. So we'll work with him. He was very cooperative. And we told him we may have to come back and relocate him, so we'll begin working on that. On Bond Road out there was those abandoned vehicles. We tagged 3 of them last night, and so that'll 72 hours will have to take place before we can get them out of there and removed. And then lastly, Commissioner Whiteley, Commissioner Milton, thank you for meeting with us out at Ochos Rios. It's very important to have y'all there to kind of work with us with problem solving with Mr. Bennett and whatnot, but appreciate you being there. I thought the meeting went pretty well, and we'll continue to work on their issues out there at Westlake. And that's all I got.
Questions? All right, Commissioner Whiteley, Milton, any other? All right, Commissioner Whiteley.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to thank you, Chief, for actually availing yourself and your staff to come out there to address those concerns, and I'm hopeful that we'll continue on that relationship as it relates to that area. I wanted to ask, when it comes to homeless engagement, I know that's been a big, we've seen a huge influx of homeless moving into unincorporated areas. What are some things that you may recommend to our citizens as it relates to engaging with them? I get calls all the time of folks wanting to go and move their stuff or engaging with them in certain ways. And of course, these are people, so I don't want to minimize who they are. And,
sure.
But, is there any advice that you would give to our citizens when it relates to engaging with the homeless population here?
Yes, sir. Good question. Interesting enough, we had a large meeting that Mr. Kegler put together on homelessness yesterday. We're trying to come up with some strategies, look at maybe some more teeth to our ordinances and things of that nature. So we're going to be working on that. But to your question, Commissioner, a couple things that come to mind. Number one, I know that particularly Chatham County and Savannah is very benevolent in giving. But what happens is when we as citizens, and have been guilty of it myself, because we all have a big heart, providing, cash or change to folks out there at the interchange or whatever, right of way they're standing in, that just continues that behavior. And not all citizens are comfortable with that type of, that look, those optics, or being, kind of standing there with someone, with a sign standing right in there. So I would encourage folks to give that money they would give to that individual, to the homeless authority or some other type of resources that support homelessness and the resources that they need to try to mitigate, you know, the amount of panhandlers that we have out there. That's one of our biggest complaints out there at 214-95. In other areas, you know, homelessness has creeped into the unincorporated parts of Chatham County much more than it has historically. It's kind of, you know, somewhat been centered in the city of Savannah, but now we are experiencing it, and we're going to have to come up with some strategies to try to mitigate that. Secondly, as far as engaging folks, let us do that, you know, so we can do it safely, and also provide resources for those individuals if we can direct them to the resources that they have. If they have a complaint, call us. If, you know, if they're on someone's property, or if they're on their property, we can come, you know, remove them, do it safely, you know, remove the items to the extent that we can to get them off there. If they're on some adjacent property, you know, we have to figure out who owns that property so we can get a citizen's agreement where we're allowed to kick people off of their property. We have a lot of lots or vacant land that's owned by companies that may not even be here in Chatham County, or individuals that may not live here. So we have to, you know, one, determine who owns it. Two, can we get a citizen's agreement and allow us to move people off the property? But please call us. That's what we're here for, and we'll go ahead and take care of it to the extent that we can.
All right, thank you for that, Chief. And my last question is, as we know, in the last legislature, there was a change to allow constitutional carry, which allows people to carry firearms, whether they're licensed or not. Do you have a plan in place to kind of track in greater detail any influx in gun crimes that we may experience, so we can have some data to see how effective that may be?
I'm trying to understand your question. So, how effective?
Well, let me back up. So the effectiveness necessarily isn't your lane, but basically, are we tracking gun violence, gun possession, and anything dealing with guns right now, to exclude the firearms being left in vehicles, which I think we should have some sort of ordinance against, but I digress. But, just a way that we can keep up with the data associated with people carrying guns, or more people carrying guns now.
Well, I think what we can do, we track every Part 1 crime, even Part 2 crime related to a gun. We can query our system. We have the ability to do that. I can provide all that data at any time to anybody. I can come back here at the next meeting and maybe do a kind of a highlight of just gun-related incidents, even if it didn't classify as a crime, and gun-related crime. I can do all of that.
I would greatly appreciate it in your next presentation, just to give us how you give us the last few years and kind of if we've seen increases. I'd greatly appreciate that. I just want to kind of keep an eye on that. I'm a gun-toting licensed firearm carrier, so don't get me wrong. But again, I'm curious the effects of constitutional carry, everybody being able to carry a gun without having to go through some sort of licensing process.
Right.
So thank you.
Yes, sir, I can do that.
Commissioner Milton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much, Chief Hadley, for all that you do and for allowing me to call you when I need to.
Yes, ma'am.
One thing I want to remind you of is Grady's Flea Market on Little Neck Road. It's still activities.
Okay.
Big time. Now,
I'll get a follow-up on that. I know we had asked our officers to look at.
and I'm not sure, I think that they went out there and did some violations. So I just want to stay on top of that, because it's really been, it affects the people in Henderson. It also affects the people on Little Neck, up and down, and it's terrible.
Yes, ma'am.
And I just was not clear that Grady's Flea Market could operate at that location. So, because it's a home, it's a residence.
Okay.
But it's a bunch of stuff in the front yard.
All right.
Also, too, I agree with you that we should go to CIP, or what is it, CIP, and get your officers a raise.
All right, thank you.
And the last thing I'm gonna say is, I'm glad we're not Memphis, Tennessee.
Yes, ma'am. We're keeping an eye on that. That's, from what I understand, it's pretty tragic.
Yeah, they were
incident up
supposed to
there.
release video this morning.
Yep. And so I've already talked
Not
with
just that.
Chief Gunther. They have indicted 5 Memphis police officers for a traffic stop that resulted in a chase in which they assaulted the driver, in which he, a couple days later, ended up dying. And so they've all been arrested and indicted, and they're going to release the video, I believe, tonight, and they're preparing for some civil unrest up there. I have talked to Chief Gunther. We got our eyes and ears open here in Savannah, but we haven't received any intelligence that, anything's afoot here, but we'll, keep our nose to the ground. And we also discussed if perhaps doing some type of community conversation relative to policing, and what we're doing here to try to prevent those type of incidents to occur here in Savannah. So, we're welcome if you have constituents that come, to you and, seek that type of conversation, please reach out. We can arrange that in a very quick fashion. I would welcome that type of conversation with the community.
That could be a meeting that we could have here in the chamber.
Sure.
All right. Any other? Thank you, sir, and thank you for what you all do and the way you do it, okay?
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
The sad part about
All right,
Memphis is
may I have a motion to accept the action calendar in its entirety, please?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Is it properly motion and second that the action calendar be accepted in its entirety? Are you ready for the question? Please cast your votes. Okay. There are no first readers, there are no second readers, so we go for information, Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. At your desk, you should have an update report that contains some updates from Parks and Recreation, and then from the activities from the public libraries on Black History Month. So that's there, and if you have any questions or need additional information on those, please don't hesitate to give me a call, and we'll make sure you get those. On the other information items, first we're going to ask Mr. Terry Jennings, to come to the podium, and we're going to give you an update on the county's upcoming blueprint process. So, Ms. Jennings.
Good morning.
All right.
So I just want to go through a few highlights of the Chatham County Blueprint Implementation Grant process. Some of you have already forwarded some inquiries from your constituents, and I appreciate that. And we're trying our best to keep them informed of the opportunity and the process by which you apply for county funds. All right, so a few things we're going to go over today are just a quick reminder, refresher of the priorities that the board has set, the eligibility criteria within the grant process, the application components itself. We'll outline the review process and the projected timeline. One thing I just want to make you all aware of as a reminder is these funds that are offered through the blueprint are primarily coming through county funds. In some cases, when we review applications that seem to align with other state or federal grant opportunities, we have, and that those situations, worked with those organizations to secure funds and then use them as subcontracts. So even if they don't get funded through the blueprint, doesn't mean that they might not get funding somewhere else within the fiscal year, as we are now made aware of the services and opportunities that they provide to the community. So the blueprint priorities that were defined by the board members through strategic planning workshop for each of the impact areas, and these impact areas align with the Chatham Community Blueprint that you all are familiar with, which is something that is done every 3 to 5 years and updated with data to reflect not only the citizens' input, but also what the data tells us in the community. So we have economy, which is primarily focused on the workforce space and making quality employment leading to self-sufficiency. In education, it is primarily focused on children and the relationship between children and their parents, working to include eliminating barriers to parental engagement in the schools. Within health, we have been effectively addressing or trying to effectively address the mental health with the education and reducing the stigma and increasing access to services. And then quality of life goes back to what Chief Hadley was just referencing. It is to reduce the crime, focusing on enforcement of individuals, specifically with those with risky behaviors. Within those areas, the board then determined what their high priorities were going to be and the things that they wanted county funds to really be in support of. And so within economy, we have children or people living below poverty and economic development. Within education, we're focused on early childhood care and education, and then engaging students, parents, and the community. Within health, we've focused on recreational facilities and food access. And then quality of life is public safety, crime reduction, sidewalks, trails, along with juvenile diversion. So the eligibility criteria that has been defined for the application process is that the programs have to directly align with the priorities of the blueprint as well as the priorities I just referenced. People have to tell us how they correlate if it's not quite obvious. So it's on them to be able to align those things. The programs have to address a data-driven need. This is not about people just feeling good. We want to know the return on our investment has been well done. And it needs to provide a direct service to Chatham County residents. By that, we're not going to pay for someone to offer services in another county. We want them to provide services in Chatham. Organizational opportunities that we will consider are institutional of higher learning, nonprofits, private sector, schools or school district, and unit of government. So what we're looking at is those services that are above and beyond a mandated service. So if it's a mandated service, that's part of what the budgeting process includes. These are services that go in addition to that. The organization must be licensed in Chatham County. They may have a license within Garden City or within the city of Savannah, which is within Chatham County. Or if they're unincorporated, it has to be within Chatham County. Again, trying to make sure that we're keeping local dollars, supporting local processes. And they have to be registered with the Secretary of State. This allows them to make sure that they have the ability to raise funds. Some of them do fundraising activities. This also ensures that they submit their nonprofit status to the state and some other pieces. So the application components that we have, it is first of all cloud-based. It is available on our website, and I'll touch on that. We have organizational profile, and this year we have added the diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, and I'll highlight that in just a moment. It includes program information, which is your performance measures and your client tracking and evaluation of your outcomes. And it also includes budget details. So we're looking at projected revenues and expenditures as well as projected. We want to make sure the organization has transparency on revenues, expenditures, and proposed use of county funds. We are confirming that they are accredited, certified, or licensing, depending on what type of category their services might need. And there are attachments that are required. So it could be that we're asking for your licensing. It could be that we're asking for your financial audit and other documents that are required. And within that, we have a budget worksheet and applications goals worksheet, which is primarily your program outcomes. As I referenced, this is a new section. It will not be evaluated on this year. So there'll be no points given or taken away for this section, but it does allow us to have a beginning and an understanding of what they are doing in the DEAI space. So I'll use an example that was shared with me, and I think it may help paint the picture a little bit. Diversity is really being invited to the dance, okay? Equity is when I'm asked to actually dance with someone. Inclusion is when the music that's being played is something I can understand, something I can resonate with, something that means something to me. And accessibility means there are no barriers, whether that be I can hear the music, I can actually access the dance floor, or I feel comfortable in that space to engage as everyone else does, even with my abilities. So if you can just think about that, that's where we're headed with some of these ideas, and we want to be able to encourage that for the people that we support. So the review process that we have set in place is there's a review committee, which is composed of staff and residents or representatives of some of our stakeholder organizations. The review committee meets and they review individually, and then we come together and we look at all the scores, and they are competitively scored for all the eligible applications. We look at their evaluation and their financial stability. Chatham County does not prefer to be the sole provider of any program. We like to see diversity in their funding streams. They need to have a demonstrated capacity to provide the deliverable outcomes that we've talked about. And then those recommendations come from the committee to the manager and it's part of the budgeting process. One thing that I have to encourage our applicants to think about is the product. We're investing in the product. Understanding that sometimes copy machines and lights have to be paid in order to offer services, but we really care about the product at the end of the day, what's going to be different in someone's life because of this service. And so we have an application process that actually opens today. We have a workshop on February the 7th. That will be from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. at the Garden City Library. Part of that was because parking downtown can be a challenge, so we offered that space. We have already received confirmation from about 38 different individuals representing about 20 organizations who will plan to be there, and that list will continue to grow, I'm sure. The deadline for application is March the 1st, and then we hope to follow the timeline of having all the recommendations to the manager by May 12th. And those organizations will have an opportunity, if the board so, as we have done in the past, to participate in the public hearing process. And then we will move forward with executing those contracts as approved by the board. So the grant period for this will be July 1 of 23 through June the 30th of 24. Currently, we have grants that range anywhere between $5,000 and $2.1 million. And grants are paid when applications or when satisfactory reports are submitted. These are not paid up front, so they're paid in arrears. And sometimes that can be a burden for some of our smaller organizations because they cannot wait that time period of the cash flow, and we have to tell them that up front. As in the staff report, the image to the left-hand side was created by our PIO team, and I would encourage you, if you do have social media, go to the county website, share that so people can actually start looking at that information and help us in to educate people and promote the blueprint opportunity. And I'll take any questions that you might have.
All right, questions? Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
All right, Mr. Manager?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Next, I'm going to ask our Finance Director, Ms. Amy Davis, to come to the podium, and we're going to do a progress report on everybody's favorite subject, our fire fee billing and collection. Ms. Davis?
Thank you. Hello, Chairman, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I hope I don't become the face of this project, but here it is. Background, Chatham Emergency Services did the billing for this service previously. They based their estimates and billings on value of the property, whereas we have made a change and made it into a fee, and it is based on a flat land fee plus a square footage charge based on scales. Facts and findings: CES provides fire services within its fire district in the unincorporated area of the county, while the other municipalities and Isle of Hope Fire Department provide fire services in other areas. CES is the largest provider for the unincorporated county. The costs for CES have been paid by subscribers to CES on a fee basis. In 2020, CES approached the board for assistance since only 65% of the residents and businesses were paying the fire fee, and they had limited options to enforce collections. So the county entered into a contract into a service contract where CES would continue to provide the preventive services, and the county would pay CES their monthly expenses. The contract was effective January 1st, 2022. On December 29th, 2021, the county was, with the constitutional right to bill for services provided, passed two ordinances. One outlined the fire protection service area, and the other allowed for a fire service tax to be imposed by the county within the service area. The county paid for CES expenses under the contract from January to June of 2022, using revenues from the SSD fund. In March of 2022, the board requested that in lieu of a tax, a fire protection service fee model be developed and be based on square footage of structures. Several fee models were reviewed, and on June 24th, 2022, a final fire fee rate schedule was adopted by ordinance. The board repealed the fire service tax ordinance. The county issued a request for proposal for billing and a collection services, and the winning bid was from LifeQuest Services of Wautoma, Wisconsin. The service period for these invoices was for July 2022 through June 30th of 2023, which aligns with the county's fiscal year. In late October, the first invoices for fire suppression were mailed out with a 30-day due date. The date was later changed to January 16th, 2023. Now, to date, we billed $13.5 million, and that was included 36,042 invoices. Amount collected as of the date of this report was $9,563,375, and the amount still outstanding was $3.9 million. The percentage paid was 70.5% of the total amount billed, and the percentage of citizens who have paid is 68%. As of this date, there were 1,043 appeals. Since I made that report, we have now collected almost 9.9 million, or 72.93%. And of that amount outstanding, by the way, I do have to put a plug in here for Alan Cantrell. He has been super, super helpful, and I don't know what he makes, but he needs a raise. He has put all the data out there for us, and he has given us wonderful little graphs to present with today, and so I just really appreciated him, and I just want you to know how much I appreciate him. So, of the amount outstanding, 3 million of it is from residential, 10,000 is conservation or ag property, 75,000 is industrial, and 525,000 is commercial properties. And so, with that, that's all I have.
Questions? Commissioner Whiteman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to state for the public that Ms. Davis is not behind this. This is a responsibility of
He's not the face of
us,
this.
the Board of Commissioners. This falls on us, and we appreciate staff and your efforts, Ms. Davis. So one question I have is the data as it relates to, can you go back to that, the collection? Yeah. What was this as of the 17th?
This particular slide was as of, yes, a week ago Friday, so whatever that was, the 20th.
All right, got you. All right, then when it comes to, on here, it says that when it comes to that RFP, when we did the RFP for the billing, did anybody local apply?
No.
No. Huh. All right. Yeah. All right, and then, let's see, as it relates to the feedback that we've been receiving, what would you say is the most common feedback? Or maybe that might be a question for Ms. Janice.
So the total accounts, we have the $300 bills. This is outstanding, I suppose. And these are outstanding by amounts. 2,611 are $300 or less. 2,457 are 300 or more. 2,457 are 225 or below. So it varies. Many of them are smaller. Did I answer that question? Am I going in the right trail here?
Well, no, that's good to know, though. But I know the complaints are wide, I know we've experienced complaints, and this is more so for public consumption. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to find out. What's been the biggest source of appeal? Excuse me.
Square footage.
Yeah.
So we've had, like I said, about a little over 1,000 appeals. As of today, I understand only about 80 have been cleared through LifeQuest and, you know, the bills produced. So we still have a long way to go on appeals.
And then we're
But-
working, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I think the common complaint is, I know the square footage of my house and it's not what you state it is. But when you start breaking it down, usually on the tax bills, it shows livable square footage. But then when you add on the garage and the shed and the decking in the backyard and the porches are all on there separately, docks, you know, we did not include docks.
Okay, so docks are
Although
not included.
marinas are being built.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
it's, marinas are built, but docks are not. And we have tried to go back and correct all of those bills that were billed with the docks. I think there was, I want to say he said there was about 30 of them.
Okay, well, not too
Yeah.
much. As it relates to LifeQuest, that's the group out of Wisconsin that's
Yes.
doing the collections. How are they compensated? What are we paying them? A percentage, a flat rate?
We actually pay them the same amount each month. So we pay them $15,000 a month for a total of $180,000.
$180,000. And then, and this may be a message for, well, excuse me, a question for manager, Mr. Manager. What are we paying for? Just the collections? Because the reason I ask this is because a lot of my constituents have voiced their concern of calling them and calling them and calling them and not getting a response, and so then it's flooding our system.
It is collections and answering questions.
They will answer questions on the payment process or the billing, but they don't answer questions on square footage or why is this being done or whose idea was this, or, you know,
And they do online.
why isn't it on our tax bill? You know, those kinds of questions typically will come to us.
So, okay, 180K for the year is what we're paying them.
Yes.
All right, and then my last question, as it relates to land that has multiple mobile homes on it, is everybody assessed the land, $100 land fee, or just the
No.
primary?
The primary
landowner?
owner of the property is assessed the land fee, and then each individual mobile home is assessed a square footage fee.
Solely, okay. So that would be a cause for an appeal too then, if somebody is being billed that land fee.
Well, it
Right.
should only be the property owner, but, yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thank you so much for that, Ms. Davis.
All right, Ms. Commissioner Milson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, out of the number of appeals, how much money is involved in that? Is that most of the outstanding money, or is that not included?
I don't know that, I'm sorry, but I can find out.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
so the still outstanding is what we billed and we've not received, right? So if they went into an appeal, they probably didn't pay.
Well, they did, they gave me the amount of the appeals fee, or, I'm sorry, the late fee. It was around $400,000 that they calculated as a late fee that, on top of, and it's about 10,000 people who have not paid. About 1,000 of those are people who are in appeals. So it does not include the appeals people, but I do not know how much money that is in appeals.
And we still not getting, we ain't close to 90% or 95%.
You know, as of this morning, it was about 73%.
Even when you get done with the appeals, they, I don't know.
No, appeals are not counted yet. They're not counted in the percentage yet.
Well,
Because they're
yeah, like I
appealing.
said, there's only 1,000 out of
Right.
10,000 that are appealing. So,
And I don't think we need to share that. I just hope the public is listening to get a better
Well,
understanding. And
yes, and the date to appeal has already passed. That was as of the 16th was the last day to appeal. So, yeah, at this point, we were telling everyone that you can appeal next year, but this year it's due.
And this is from June to July to June, right?
June,
So
I'm
June,
sorry,
they're gonna get
July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023.
And what's confusing to most of my constituents is that they didn't get the bill until October. So they figured that if they pay, they're good until next October. But they're gonna get
It's
another
just-
bill in June.
It's just a long process that once we selected LifeQuest to do the billing, then it was a matter of collecting the data and determining what the bills would look like and actually, getting that uploaded into a system to bill it. And then we actually billed in phases. So we billed like 2,500 bills the first week because we wanted to get feedback on people and we did. We got a lot of feedback from people saying, well, I don't know what the property address is. You didn't put the property address on here. So then we were able to correct those next batches and put the address on there. Well, then they'd come back, well, you didn't put, that's a rental property, but you made it out to me, or, different questions. We learned from our mistakes. I think there were some complaints that some of the language we used was somewhat harsh, so we softened the language. And, you learn by mistakes, right?
I know, everybody I talk to, if they want to be recorded, I'll send you the recording too. Thank you, I'm done.
Commissioner Farrell?
The budget number you have up here for a 12-month period is $13,567,50 that you billed. What was the previous 12 months that CES billed?
I want to say it was around 11 million. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think they collected somewhere around 9 million, but I'm not certain.
Well, my question is what did they bill? Just like your first line is amount billed, I'd like to know what the previous 12 months, the amount billed.
Okay, I'll find that out.
Point of information, Mr. Chairman, the chief is here. Perhaps he has the answer. No?
He doesn't have the answer.
I got you.
Okay.
He's
I'll
shaking his
find out
head, he
for you.
doesn't have the answer. He doesn't have
Nobody
the
wants to
answer.
be the face.
So let her get it.
Thank you.
Let her,
And they stopped billing
Right.
December 31st.
Right, so-
2021, there was a 6-month period where no bills went out. So
right.
it wouldn't really cover
Yeah.
the cost.
So for that,
Well-
that 6 months, the SSD picked up the cost.
Right.
Well, then you could give me this, well,
Okay,
I mean,
figure it out.
I just want to have something to compare one billing period with another billing period.
One of the big differences is, you basically have two operations. You have emergency services and you have fire suppression. What we are paying for is the fire suppression. And because EMS is a billable service and that they can recoup their costs through EMS. But with fire suppression, it's generally speaking, has historically always been kind of a community function to set up a fire department. So rather than billing people $10,000, $12,000 to put the fire out at your house, everybody collectively shares in the cost. So when they split these two functions up, you have a common governance, the board of, the board, the chief, the accountants, all of those people that work collectively to do the operations as a whole. So a portion of that admin cost was allocated to the fire portion. It's very similar to our indirect cost allocation, which I know is a dirty word, but
No.
But it
when
does.
used properly,
I
it's
mean,
a
you have
good
to.
word.
If it, it is a legitimate cost because without that function, if you had a separate admin department for the fire department, it would probably cost more than if you have a shared admin department.
Well, again, my question was not to confuse it with cell tower revenue and EMS revenue. It was fire suppression. How much was billed for fire
I
suppression?
want to
in a
say it was around
comparable-
11
in a
million, but I'll have to check on that.
Well, my follow-up question is, that sounds like a $2.5 million increase once the county was charged with billing, and I'd like an explanation to why.
Well,
why
again, it was kind of that.
$2.5 million more when it was my belief, and every constituent that I've talked to's belief, that we just needed to collect 100% of what was billed. But this looks like 120%. So at our next meeting, perhaps you could shed some
Okay,
light on those financial figures.
sure.
Yeah, and I believe Chief Kearns gave us that email this week,
Yep, there is
some responses.
there's an email with you included, Commissioner Farrell, where Chief Kearns from Chatham Emergency Services talks about what took place. I would ask, I sit on that board, I would ask Mr. Chairman if he'd be allowed to answer that question, because again, this is
Something he
such a
sent on the
contentious.
email?
The question that Commissioner Farrell asked was, I emailed and included you, Commissioner Farrell, and staff in an email to the chairman of the Board of Directors of Chatham Emergency Services, Tim Blanco, and Chief Kearns. Chief Kearns responded to it the other day, the 25th. But again, for the sake of the public understanding that, because I think that is a very valid question. You know, you guys said your budget was 11 million, and now the county's coming up with 13 million. I think that is a question that warrants some sort of explanation that the public adhere to.
Yeah,
Okay.
a public explanation, not a private.
But you want him to answer on the email that he sent?
I'm asking that the question that Commissioner Farrell just asked, if
Right.
it can be answered currently by
He
Chief
shook,
Kearns.
that's what you were saying. He shook his head no.
Well,
That's why
He
I'm
shook his
asking
head
you.
about the
I'm
budget.
not in a hurry.
Yeah,
I'm
if
okay
you
with
want
our
them to
our
respond-
next scheduled meeting
Right.
to answer these questions. I don't
Right.
need a hurry
Let it-
up,
let it-
shoot
let 'em
from the
get the
hip
right
answer.
data.
I just want to,
He has it. He responded in our email. He was shaking his head about the actual specific fire budget. But as it relates to the reason for an increase or an inflated cost, I think he does have an answer for that.
All right. Come on.
So actually, I was shaking my head that I didn't know the exact number, and it would be
Right.
difficult for us to get it. We can get it.
Tell
Because-
everyone who you are, whereabouts.
Sure.
Not to get mad.
Chuck Kearns, CEO, Chatham Emergency Services, and our firefighters and EMTs need raises also. So, well, I got the same slide that Chief Hadley has. The difference that would make it difficult to do an apples-to-apples comparison on what we billed last time as opposed to what the county's billing now is, we billed on a monthly basis. And most of our bills started when people bought a house and moved in. So in the summertime, we would bill over 2,000 properties a month. But in the wintertime, we might only bill 1,000. So it's not a once a year, here it is, amount. So, and then when we got to January 1st, the county took over paying, and in the contract said we had to stop billing. So we only have a partial year of, the billing to compare. Overall, as we were discovering every 6 months when the tax assessor's office, property appraiser's office updates their records, then we would go find those new records and generate bills for those. So it was a fluid process, and we didn't bill all at once at one time.
I understand it's a fluid process, but even fluids can be measured. So there's
Sure.
a start time and an end time. I just want a snapshot of the current data from the most current 12 months before the county began paying, billing in financially involved in the fire suppression. I
Yes,
know
sir.
we've always been involved in the EMS, and that's a separate issue, even though it's the same two entities working together. But that was the question.
I think that letter that I sent the other day might actually answer that question. It was something like 7.6 million is what we collected. I don't have it handy to reflect on it.
Like I said, we don't
I'm
have to
looking at
answer
it,
that
yeah.
today. I'd rather people study the question and just
11.4.
compare.
Yeah, they billed
The-
11.4 and they received 7.6 million, leaving a $3.8 million shortfall.
So there's a 2.1, so what you just told me is there's approximately, when the county took over for the same 12-month period, we're asked to raise 2,100,000 more than what y'all were seeking.
13.2 is their budget, and then we added a little bit more in that fund for admin, because we knew we had the billing issue. So 13.2 was the budget that was requested and that the county manager approved for this current fiscal year with CES.
Yep. And basically, the increases were, pardon me, normal increases for pay increases, as you saw Chief Hadley's spreadsheet a few minutes ago. We're in competition with about 13 other fire departments for firefighters in this region. And while our staffing was diminishing, we have to build it up to try to maintain an ISO rating, and we have to do pay increases. So those are the primary things. And then a tertiary thing is, we've been so short-funded for so many years, capital projects have gone to the wayside. And we've only been doing Band-Aid repairs on fire station roofs and things like that. Some of you have been kind enough to come and look at some of our stations and see the cracks in the walls dating back to Hurricane Matthew and the unsafe structures. So there was a lot that was put on delay because we didn't have the funds to do it.
Help fix that? I'm sorry.
You finished?
So,
Well, and major insurance increases also.
so basically, that's my question. If there's a substantial increase in the budget, which was not articulated to this commissioner or commission at the time that we took this on, I'd just like an explanation. It sounds like it's $1,800,000 more. And I'd just like to see some data that shows where that funding's going, because it was my understanding that CES needed to collect what they were billing, and then when we took it over, it was gonna be our job to try to collect that amount, but this is an amount plus 1.8 million. And with the number of complaints from the citizens, the fee payers, about a lot of folks' fees are higher than what they've previously been billed or paid, or have paid. You know, I just think a public explanation is warranted.
So can we gather, Mr. Manager, can we gather all the data that he's talking about, and let's have it for him by the next meeting?
Yes, sir. We'll have
All right?
it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, let's have that so that we can get that, and then that might give us a better picture of why there's an increase.
Well, and I think, as I understand, what Commissioner Farrell's asking, he's looking at the budget amount.
Right.
What was budgeted previously versus what's budgeted now.
See, and based upon what the numbers that Ms. Kramer knows gave, right? They were collecting at $7 million. We now are collecting at now $9 million. That's a $2 million, two
But-
plus.
But if you look at the
1.8,
percentages,
whatever.
the percentages
Right.
are basically the same in
Right.
collections where we were.
So let's get all that data, let's get all the facts and data there together, so that then we can lay it out, and we can print it out, and we can show it out on the thing, so that everybody know that we on the same page, okay?
Yes.
Because she's figuring with her, and he's figuring with his calculator and so forth, but if we get that data, we can get this, and it's like he said, you had a starting point where you begin to collect, and you had a stop point where you stop collect. Let's get that data for that period of time, okay? Let's get all that together, and so we have it at the next meeting. So then everybody would have a clear picture. Plus, we could give to the news meeting those copies of what we're saying, rather than us doing it up here, like figuring it out, okay? And I know you, I wasn't gonna show no numbers that I did down here. All right, I'm keeping it on my paper, and I'm hiding my paper when I get through. But we will get that so that you can give it to all the commissioners, and then you can give it to the public as well.
Well,
And that'll answer his question.
we'll just talk about
I
it in the
understand.
meeting next time. and
Yeah, that's what I'm
bring
saying.
back
Next
the
time, next
data
meeting, we'll
and-
come up, and then we'll have all of it, and we'll be able to show it, okay?
Because I'm getting that question a lot
Yeah.
from
Now,
fee
one of the,
payers, and,
Right.
you know, I think I owe them a straight answer.
Commissioner, Kicklighter, you still? Okay. One of the questions I'm getting, and a couple of the, and I shouldn't say a couple either, because it's more than just a couple emails. Folks got their bill in October. They mailed their payment. It has not gotten to the bank, and I'm referring them all to your number. I'm sorry to send them over there, but I don't know what to tell them, all right? So if they have sent, if I send a check in November for the bill I got in October, and it has not reached my bank, it has not cleared my bank, what do I do next?
We can have it researched if it got applied somewhere, well, if it hasn't cleared your bank.
Right, it hadn't been
It's
taken.
probably a
So therefore, it
post
couldn't have
office
been.
issue.
And that's the person who said I paid, and they've got a canceled check, they don't have a canceled check, they have a carbon copy of the check that they sent in November,
Yeah,
all right?
it's probably a post office issue, and I can't control
Yeah.
the post office.
Yeah.
But if they have a canceled check and it's
Yeah.
still showing that it has not been paid, it was probably applied to the wrong account.
Right.
And we can get that fixed.
Okay, all right, all right.
We
Anything
had
else?
some people pay too, when we put the list of estimated bills up on the site, we had some people just mail checks, even before the bill came in.
Okay,
So there was some of that going on.
Right.
all right, so we still got some straightening out to do. Anything else?
No, sir, that's it.
All right, we do have,
Mr. Chairman, just one last
Sure.
thing I want to say. So just based on us paying $180,000 for the collections, and I know in the past when we talked about this, I shared that our tax commissioner was potentially willing to collect this. With the money we're spending, we could have paid 3 employees at least $40,000 a year with 40% going towards benefits. So $56,000 a year could have went to 3 people to be staffed at the tax commissioner's office, so we can keep the billing local. I urge us to, I know that, and just for the public to know, our manager and chairman has shared that we will be having more workshops, and as we work through this, I just want to put it out there that I think we should strongly consider keeping the billing here for the sake of consistency. And also, if I was getting 180 grand, and I know that you might not use me next year, I wouldn't answer calls and answer phones either. Thank you.
Yes.
all right, but,
We're looking at that, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
We're looking at that.
Right.
And we.
but let's make this point now, so we'll be on, so that we'll be on the right footing. There was a RFP done.
Yes, sir.
She could have answered the RFP.
She could have, yes, sir.
All
But
right, she did not. So therefore, she was
is she?
the tax commissioner.
we think, and we're exploring the options now, but we think we'll have the ability to bring it in-house next year and
Right.
and have county staff do that. So
Right.
that's what we're looking at.
See, and well, we're looking at, listen, everything we doing trying to save us some money, okay? So if there is another avenue where we can cut down on the expense going out, but yet still get the services carried, then that's what the staff,
Yeah.
well, that's what the staff is looking at, okay? And so I'm just saying that when folks get us in the corner, and I'm talking to commissioners now, folks get us in the corner and say, we could have done this or we could have did that, but then they didn't tell anybody else that. None of the rest of us know that I coulda, shoulda, woulda, if or it'da, whatever else. And my point to that whole thing is, we knew that this first year was gonna be troubling. And we knew that we were gonna have to do some tweaking during this first year. So in this first year, while we're doing it now, I'm gonna ask all commissioners, whatever your concerns are, please give it to the manager so that it can come to the table. I wanna invite all of the homeowners association, the neighborhood association, the glee clubs, the fraternal clubs, or anyway, if you would like to have us come and talk to you about the fire fee situation, please email or call Ms. Gale. She can put it on the schedule. We get it in the manager's schedule, and we get the necessary folks at your particular meeting to ask your particular question. Because I know there's a whole lot of folks who still have questions, all right? And they sending it to all of us. I'm not the only one getting emails. I'm not the only one getting phone calls. I don't think there's nobody up here who's not getting them, okay? And so what we're trying to do is to put the services in place so that as many questions as we can answer, we get answered, and we get you the proper answer rather than the guessing answer, okay? That's why I asked them to gather all the data so that we can answer Commissioner Farrell's question rather than going by my numbers, your numbers, or anybody else's number. And so, upcoming, if the tax commissioner is willing to do it then by all means, let's do it. If we can find a company in Chatham County who can do it, let's keep the money local. And that's one of the things I would stress. Let's do as many, let's look at every avenue we can to make the adjustments now, because we lasting now from July 1st of 2022 until June 30th of 2023. So in this period of time, we are January. In the next 3 to 4 months, let's see what necessary corrections we can make. Let's see what necessary changes we can make and go for it.
One of my constituents said she just opened up a business and will do it for $170,000 next year.
I hear.
Answer the RFP.
Okay. Now, with that, now we do have to have an executive session. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second?
Litigation and appointment.
Yes. Yes, for litigation.
Personnel.
Acquisition and personnel. All right? Please vote. I think everybody voted but me, huh? Okay. All right. Somebody, I'm missing 6. I'm missing 6. I'm missing 6. I'm missing a vote for 6. All right.